Welcome to another video from Dr. Lock. On the bench we have two Lockwood Optimums. Why? Because they came out of a job and the job wasn't very old, probably about a year and a half, and they've made their way to be on the bench. Basically, when you put the cylinder in, the actual cylinder here wouldn't protrude. It was like, but you could force it as much as you wanted, like this, and you'd be lucky to get the damn thing to move like that. And you force as much as you want. Okay, so there could be a couple of reasons for this. First one is when I depress the trigger, I get that resistance. When the latch is not under any pressure, it seems to work okay. But when it was actually out of the door, in my hand like this, with the latch spring loaded, I could not get it to move. And I'll tell you how it was fixed in just a moment. This one here we've just cleaned up. Still needs a little bit of work, but is working again. What was happening on exactly the same with both of them, you put your key in, the cam starts to pick up the bolt, and it was so hard to force it, you could literally break the turn cylinder or get the cam out of alignment rather than get this bolt out. I actually had to put it in a vise and pull it to get it out. When I look at the side window here, it actually was lifting, so the cam was pushing and lifting, and it was just getting it to move along to travel. That was where the problem was. Another problem I also noticed with these is that when you try and rehand it, you undo this screw here, and it should just be a simple matter of undoing the screw, flipping your bolt around and screwing it back in. But for some reason I had so much trouble with it. We're talking 5-10 minutes of trying to work out why it's actually kinking up or jamming up all the time. Even now, just to line it up, it's not working well. Just going to move it around there, try and get it in there, and I still can't get the screw to take. So that's what's connected to that part in there, and I'll just make sure it's on there properly, and I'll give this another go. So you can rehand them, but I had quite a lot of trouble doing it, so I'm not really a fan of this design. This is not the first time I've seen this problem with this type of lock. Okay, there we've got it on one direction. Let's just back it off, and I'll show you what I mean. That was quite easy to get in that direction. Now there is a big hole under there, so we're going to need to recenter the cradle which it rides on, and hopefully that will pick it up, because it's quite a large cradle. I'm talking 8mm at least. So I'm just going to tighten up this screw, and by all fairness, this handle should be rehanded. Okay, and it's rehanded. Now it's working good, but I actually had to back these off and do this. Okay, Lockwood Optimum, solid cam to drive. I'm using one with the turn cylinder here. It's just a bit easier on the fingers, but when this is in the locked position, this part doesn't move. Because this has a turn snib, this one does, but it is a fixed cam. Okay, down to the point of the whole thing of how did I fix these, how you can do it yourself when they start to fail. This is a Lockwood Optimum, part number OP30/2P TL/SS, and then Optimum PT hinge, 24mm bolt, 34mm backset, TP. Okay, so how did I fix these two? With a lot of this stuff. $2 from Supercheap, degreaser, and I'll tell you why. To actually clean it out, I hit it once with a good amount of degreaser, and I brought it back to the table, and still it was not moving, like it was still tight to get it to project. Once I actually popped the bolt out, it was allowing me to get down into this mechanism down here and actually give it a lot more juice. When I got down into there, it was about this section here where the problem was, and around this section here. So that was able to unfree it, and now just after the degrees, no lubricant put back in there, I've got it moving nice and smoothly. But that's passable. But I will finish it off with some WD-40, and I'm going to pump this in here everywhere, in every little angle. You can never have enough of this stuff when you're dealing with this type of lock, and it's going to get messy. That's the reason why I've got my black gloves on, because this stuff goes everywhere. Okay, now I've got a whole heap of it in there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to work that action and make sure that all those parts are lubricated. So I put it about halfway, pump a bit more in there. It's coming out the sides, I like that. Pump a bit more in there now. We don't have the cylinder screw in there, that's why the cylinder keeps moving. But now that's moving freer than a brand new one, with no problem whatsoever. So if you are experiencing a lock like this on a door and you can't get it locked or unlocked, first thing is to check that the latch is actually inside the latch or striker plate and there's no pressure being put on it, because when you do put pressure on it, I did realise that that actually did put pressure back on the key. Let's just project it now. Where are we here? Got to line up that cylinder. Okay, it's projected now. I put pressure on the bolt, I can feel that on the key. So if you've got a lot of pressure on this bolt, it's a good chance that's what might actually be jamming your lock up. So you can lift the door up, lift it down, shake it around, see if you can get the pressure off this. Once the pressure's off this, with the cylinder in the right spot, it should unlock. And if it doesn't unlock, you can always go for the other option of snapping the cylinder, getting it all out of there, and in the locked position, which it will be, you'll probably have the hole through the door. Now at this point you're going to really need to get up in there and flush it as much as you can. It's going to come pouring out from every angle, at which stage if you've put enough of it in there through the handles, you can still go in there and you can manipulate it back down again, as you see. So I'm just manipulating that with a screwdriver. You can do that through the handles, through the actual handle. There is another tool as well that goes through and just works that drive. If you've got one of them, great. But the moral of the story is this stuff saves the day yet again. And this is just a design fault with this particular lock, the type of grease they used. It's not a cheap lock by any means, and it's not a cheap brand, but for some reason after a year, maybe 2 years in the sun, a bit of heat, a bit of moisture, the lubricant they've used on these just isn't good enough. It turns into glue and then it causes lock problems. So you might see a whole heap of these being replaced now, and you might be on a job and it might be one that's jammed, come fix it, and not knowing where to start. And the good thing is you can save the lock, so you can save yourself a lot of money, and you can just charge for your labour. So that's better than having to go and supply another $80–90 lock to get the job done. And then, you know, it's one of those things, you just see how long it lasts for. You can pack it up with some lithium grease as well. There is that sort of lithium sort of white spray grease. That's not bad as well. That might actually work, but I'm not really sure on how long that will last or what that will do in heat or you know, when it dries out, because that's the problem here. When I look in here, I can actually see a white, see if I can get you to see it. See that grease? That's white, like lithium grease there. That's some sort of white grease, and that's our problem right there. That stuff dries out and it turns into honey, and then it turns into bubble gum. I don't know why they've used it. Definitely a design flaw, but the greaser saves the day. There's a video for today. Leave a comment down below. Hope this helps you out. Thanks for watching.